Didn't even test. I don't need to test. Everything's good. Didn't even clean. Everything's good. I am a slob. I've got 1 mint left. Sponsored by Smint. Is it Smint? Must be Smint. Smint peppermint. As if that rhymes. It's mint riding with mint. I don't know why I said it like that. Right. Hello. Hello and welcome to this channel, abellitt. Um, I've been continuing to work on drawing. Ignore that. I need to take a photo of myself today, for a passport, and I wanted to take the photo, but my sorry, this mint is getting to me. Um, so I wanted to get the passport photo done. Sorry, this is the first time I've been talking today. It's literally noon and I haven't done anything. So I wanted to get a passport photo done. But the issue was my hair was absolute mess. So I've washed my hair. It hasn't dried yet though. I can't bother to use a hairdryer right now. So I thought I would just focus on doing some streaming while it dries, and I can sort it out. I don't know why I'm trying to look good for a photo. I don't need to focus on looking good. Anyway, yeah, my hair wasn't dried in this either. So just for those of you not in the know, which is going to be everyone, um, I've been basically working on a little animation. I'll just show a segment of it. It's an animation of me drawing. Of course, it's not a real. I didn't make this from scratch. I'm just drawing over my video of myself. But I think it looks quite cool, and that's what I've been working on. Realize there's going to be a bunch of audio. Oh yeah, I've just turned off desktop audio. Is there a setting in this? Good. Okay. I don't need the audio for this coming through onto here. I can turn on desktop audio now. And what I'm going to be doing is basically drawing over layers of myself. While that's going on, give me a second actually, I'm going to come back to this. Essentially what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be drawing myself while also doing that. I'm going to be watching some YouTube videos because I need to watch something while this is going on. And what better to watch than a bit of YouTube drama? Because I guess that's the kind of thing I'm doing right now. I think Destiny's actually lost subscribers quite a lot. Wait a minute. Wait, can't see can't see a social blade without oh. Yeah, he's lost 1,000 subscribers. He's daily averaging right now 34 subscribers. He only got up 1,000 subscribers in the last 30 days. That's really bad. Anyway, I'm gonna watch this Aberrant Preach video. I normally don't watch Aberrant Preach, but I feel like I want to. Let me. How am I gonna do this? Just gonna make sure there's no other random setting. I'm really being cautious. No capture, game capture. Guess it would be window capture. Should we go for display capture? Okay, that's not what I'm after. Window capture. There we go. Stick that there. Drink it. Let's crop it a bit. Nope. It ought to crop. Ought to crop, crop, crop. Professional. Okay, I'm gonna stick that in the corner, and I'm just gonna be watching it. I might react to it. I might not. That's another point. The reason I'm doing it this tiny is that I want the focus to be really on the drawing. I'm probably going to react to it along the way. Fuck it. I mean, there's people out there who do reaction videos all the time, so why can't I? Okay, I'm going to play it now.
The unfortunate thing about this whole video is that it might have been out of focus. All right, today's topic, by popular demand, everyone wanted us to cover my girl.
Hello, hello, hello. Just going to do a test.
And if you aren't,
let's see. Okay, oh, I don't like that. Can I open a new window? Are you seeing it? Yes. Sorry, I'm just worried because I haven't done a internet history wipe in a while. I should probably just wipe now, then I'll be fine. What am I looking for? My own channel, live. Haven't done a internet history wipe in a while. You can't hear it. Oh.
everyone wanted us to cover my girl.
Hello, hello, hello. Just gonna do a test.
And if you aren't,
it's a bit quiet. That's probably. There we
go. Aware after the Trump assassination attempt, in which I think someone else in the crowd ended up passing away from the bullet that missed Trump. A lot of people had a lot
hello,
of things
hello,
to
hello.
say.
Test, test, test.
Talking about it. We were on vacation, so I didn't really give. And also, I'm not.
Let's see. What am I looking for?
Aware after the Trump assassination attempt, in which I think someone else in the crowd ended up passing away from the bullet that missed Trump. A lot of people had a lot
hello,
of things
hello,
to
hello.
say.
Test, test, test.
Talking about it.
Okay, that's good. Sorry, we've got it set up now. We're good. Right. Let's begin drawing and watching the video. Start from the
I think the only unfortunate thing about this whole video is that it might have been out of focus. All right, today's topic, by popular demand, everyone wanted us to cover my girl Destiny and her recent comments. And if you aren't aware, after the Trump assassination attempt, in which I think someone else in the crowd ended up passing away from the bullet that missed Trump. A lot of people had a lot of things to say. A lot of people were talking about it. We were on vacation, so I didn't really give. And also, I'm not American, so not my country, not my problem. Destiny made some comments, essentially laughing, didn't really care. If I could summarize everything in a very gleeful tone, he was saying, fuck around and find out, which I hope is a pretty fair summation of what he was essentially trying to say. He says, if you're somebody who engages in violent rhetoric, as Trump does, according to him, and if you're one of his supporters who supports somebody who's an insurrectionist who wanted to overthrow the government, suspend the Constitution, yada, 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 I don't really care if bad things happen to you because you're the kind of person who encourages people to violence. That was a mistake, and he's like, I don't care. And he said so by making jokes, and a lot of people had a problem with it. They felt it was insensitive, it was disgusting, etc., etc. Is that a fair summation? Yeah. All right. I saw some people saying he endorses assassination attempts, or he's saying people should. It's not what he said. From everything I've seen, and I'll probably post the clips of him talking about it.
Yeah, so from what I know about this whole thing, I watch Destiny quite a lot. I think he's probably, I want to make sure the audio is good. Yeah, he's probably one of the best political minds out there. He has a, he's basically a streamer who has a really avid passion for research, especially more recently. Now that he's on ADHD medication, and yeah, essentially he made some comments about the Trump assassination thing, which I'm mixed about. Let's say it that way. Um, on the one hand, I think I so we if you don't know about the Trump assassination, essentially Trump yeah, everyone should know the Trump assassination. Um, so yeah, Trump almost was assassinated, but he wasn't quite assassinated. Uh, and he was just shot in the ear, essentially, right? So he was shot in the ear, almost died. Sorry, I'm going to stop drawing real quick just so I can talk about this. So Trump was almost shot in the ear, but not quite shot in the ear. Uh, as a result, Destiny went to social media and said, "I didn't want Trump to be assassinated or anything like that. I didn't want the person to die, but I also don't have any sympathy for the person who died. The fact is that Trump is an insurrectionist, and attempted to overthrow the government and done it. An insurrection literally implies trying to overthrow a government institution or trying to undermine a government institution via violent means. Right? That is how you overthrow a government. Just realized I haven't drawn this frame. So if I can kind of understand his statements, right? So if you're supporting someone who's going to talk about violence, then don't be surprised when you go into a rally that there's going to be violence. The the issue is there's a lot of people who are supporting Trump who I don't think support the violence that happened. But the fact is, he is being he was being investigated for his violent stuff, but now he's got criminal immunity thanks to the Supreme Court. So I think with all of that, I think Destiny just got pissed and was like, well, what else is there to talk about? The fact is that there is a violent person who's just been given criminal immunity. He should have been barred from continuing to run as president, but he isn't now. So I'm saying barred. I'm using phrases that maybe doesn't quite make sense. But point is, I think I can sympathize with Destiny's position. Um, I don't think that violence is the means to stop democracy. This is another comment he made, by the way, because I don't think he believes that violence is the way to do it, but I think he's suggesting it's the natural consequence um, of Trump acting the way he is. If he's acting like a fascist, don't worry. And he is acting like a fascist, by the way. He is doing fascist. Uh, he's undermining the government, and he's attempting to make a more authoritarian government in future. So uh, don't be surprised if people start to treat you like a fascist. If you start acting like a fascist. Um, So that's the point that I'm trying to make. That's the point that Destiny's trying to make. Hopefully, and it seems like Abram and Preach kind of understand the position. It seems like they understand the position. I think the issue that we're going to start having is that they don't believe that Trump is um, either they don't believe that Trump is a fascist, or they don't believe that Trump uh, is a violent person.
He hasn't said that.
Get the dude, the firefighter guy, Trump, the people that support him. I just want you to know, okay? Just in case you're confused or it seems like you don't, whatever. If one of you were in the crowd and you're a conservative fan of mine and you end up, getting blown away or whatever the fuck, I'm making fun of you the next day on Twitter. I am 100%.
A person in a crowd cheering for and supporting a traitor to this country caught astray, I'm so sad, please. As well as Donald Trump incited an insurrection and then was granted full criminal immunity for possibly all of his involvement. I have zero sympathy for anything that happens to him or anyone who supports him. If I've offended anyone with my recent tweets, I'd like to make things right. DM me and I'll buy you front row seats to the next Trump rally. There was this moment where Pierce Morgan says you seem almost gleeful, then saying that
Sorry. So Destiny's known for doing quite dark comments as well. um, I don't know if there's much. If anyone's offended by my recent tweets, I'd like to make things right. DM me and I'll buy you front row seats to the next Trump rally. So essentially, saying I hope you get shot. Um. So yeah. Yep.
Seats to the next Trump rally. There was this moment where Pierce Morgan says you seem almost gleeful, then saying that makes you frankly despicable, with Destiny responding.
I don't think I'm gleeful about anything. I don't think anybody should die. I don't think anybody deserves to die.
Which you can still say is incredibly bad, but I just want to be accurate as possible. So, listen, I'll say this, man. Sometimes y'all DM me or leave me comments. You're like, oh, you afraid to talk about your girl? I don't give a. First off, fuck you and fuck anybody who think I got a problem with saying this shit. I ain't afraid of saying none of this stuff. And I think a lot of you in the fan base have gotten very comfortable because you've seen that for a long time. We've covered trans women in sports or all this other stuff. So you think like we perfectly align with some of you on the far right where you guys are like, I don't believe in none of this. I'm not with you. I have no problem saying that. And if me saying that bothers you, you need to take a hike, okay? Just because I made fun of fucking dweeby liberals who go and want to have safe spaces and do all this corny shit, it does not mean I'm some right-winger who thinks all libs are bad, okay? That's you. Now, we don't align there. If you can handle that, stick with...
Just saying, I don't think... I think Abba and Preacher generally... What's the good word to put? I don't think they're really political people. I think that's just the fact. There's a group of people, right? So some people think like, okay, yeah, look, there's left wing and there's right wing. Again, I'm gonna steal a bit from Destiny here, but I think a big part right now is it's not really left versus right. It's more establishment versus anti-establishment, and here's the thing. These terms are really just tools to view certain political situations. And when I say I'm establishment, I feel like what I'm really saying is I don't want to support the fascist, and this is talking in context, of course, of American politics. Trump does represent anti-establishment views, but he represents it in a, I mean, actually, I don't know. I don't even know. Like, Trump almost spouts anti-establishment rhetoric, but when he's actually in office, he basically just represents establishment views anyway. But really, both Biden and Trump are very establishment people. When I'm talking about anti-establishment, I'm talking about people who would say, well, he said he wanted to clean the swamp, but the problem is that when Trump went into office, he was the swamp. So yeah, it got a bit awkward there. I kind of lost my train of thought of what was said before. Oh, Abba and Preach, I don't think represent really any strong political view. You can put Destiny into a firm center left wing, right? Maybe in some cases, maybe even slightly more further left than most center left wing people. Not like so far left to be communist or socialist, but far left enough. Um, People like Abba and Preach are centrist. They're very much a centrist person, and in that sense, they're going to look at a situation like Trump and think like, well, you shouldn't be violent towards anyone. But I think that what the issue with being a centrist is that generally you're a centrist because you're not that interested in politics. And that's fine. Most people aren't interested in politics. But I feel like the more that you delve into politics, you could say the more you delve into politics, the more radicalized you get, right? So you're going to go into your camp of whether you're left wing or right wing. So you might start off with the likes of Ben Shapiro, and then you work your way down to the Nick Fuentes, or you might start off in your realm of Destiny, and you might work your way down to the likes of Vosh or Paul's Ego or Hassan here. Most people though are gonna stick with center views though, especially if you're not that interested in politics, and that could be the case. Um, I think, especially in the case with Abba and Preach, uh, that they're not like deep into the politics stuff. They're as deep as an American is, which generally in America seems like America is very much more politically engaged than people in Europe. Uh, but although that is the case, I feel like Abba and Preach don't do enough. They're not the kind of people that will be doing a whole bunch of research into politics, and as a result, they're not going to be as extensive and knowledgeable as someone like Destiny, who has been looking into this whole craziness of what happened in January 6th for a while now. And the fact is, if you look into it, probably the biggest scandal was the fact that there was the faked electoral votes, right? So there were 7 different states in America that had fake electoral ballots. Faked, is it a ballots or I forget what they're called, but they're basically certificates to say where the electorates should go within the American within that state. And the whole idea was that Mike Pence would get these fake electoral ballots. I don't know if he actually got them in hand at the time, but he would be going, okay, I don't know whether this real authentic one is good or if this fake one is the real one. He was basically going to say, I don't know which one's which, so um, we have to postpone the vote. I think that was the aim, either postpone the vote or put it to Congress, and that would have made Trump win, even though they put through fake electoral ballots. It was literally a way to um, the undermine the U.S. institution, and as a result, that's good. As a result, uh, Trump would have undermined the democracy there. But there was also the efforts to march to the Capitol on January 6th, and they ended up being violent and breaking in. And while that was happening, Trump was, and I think, oh, who's that slimy fuck who, the lawyer, I forget his name, Giuliani? No, that's someone else, I think. I don't know, but there was a lawyer that that Trump was working with essentially, and they all Trump and that Rudy Giuliani, I think it was him. He was working with Trump to fuck up the whole electoral system, right? Fuck up the electoral system, yet to postpone the vote and essentially undermine the democracy. All of this is an insurrection, or all of that is an insurrection, and Trump should not be running for office. But Trump has now given himself political immunity, essentially making himself a king. which is funny because America literally split from the UK to not be part of a frickin' dictatorship, essentially. Um, sorry, just trying to make this work. To try and make it split from a dictatorship. But yeah, that's essentially what's happened. So Aberrant Preach does not understand these parts, or sorry, I'm being too quick to judge. They might understand this part, but they don't come across to me as people who are super politically engaged. In fact, I might be completely wrong about this. Let me check their channel. They might actually be always talking about politics. Render Man's Life. I didn't show for 30 days. My review. Asmongold. See, like, the Mr. Beast agenda. See, they seem to be more interested in drama, and that's okay. I like drama. But they don't seem to be political people, at least not on their main channel. If they are political, then sure, whatever. So that is the issue that comes along with this whole thing. And yeah, let's carry on. Fucking hell, we've been talking for a long time.
Who go and want to have safe spaces and do all this corny shit. It does not mean I'm some right winger who thinks all libs are bad, okay? That's you. Now, we don't align there. If you can handle that, stick around. If you can't, that's none of my business. But don't ever think that I'm afraid to espouse what I'm...
Sorry,
all right, where you guys are like, I don't believe in none of this. I'm not with you. I have no problem saying that. And if me saying that bothers you, you need to take a hike, okay? Just because I made fun of fucking dweeby liberals who go and want to have safe spaces and do all this corny shit, it does not mean I'm some right winger who thinks all libs are bad, okay? That's you. Now, we don't align there. If you can handle that, stick around. If you can't, that's none of my business. But
yeah,
don't ever
he's
think
not
I'm
right wing.
what I'm thinking just to keep you around.
I think he's just centrist, and when I say centrist, I mean it in the most plainest sense. If anything, I have a feeling that Aberrant Preach would probably vote for Kamala Harris, but might be wrong. It might be that they're more into Trump, or they might not even be that interested in voting. I don't really know.
I don't care. I'm going to say my thoughts whether you leave or not, whether we go down 1 million subs or not. I don't care. And as far as what Destiny goes, I'm not bothered by it at all. Why? Because the way he talks is normal for American political landscape, okay? I have seen it degenerate over the last 10 years, especially since Trump joined, where people say all kinds of stuff, including Trump himself. I've watched Trump say he wanted to punch protesters in the face.
And he's walking out, and we're not allowed, you know, the guards are very gentle with him. He's walking out like big high fives, smiling, laughing, like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. And we'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi, who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know?
And what we'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
Speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last guy that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here.
Guy who can do a body slam is my kind of guy.
The last guy did the same thing. You were the guardian.
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Destiny and others have essentially said is being a hypocrite in this situation, tweeting out a screenshot of Rubin memeing about hammer time after what happened to Paul Pelosi. Also linking to when Rubin wrote, here's hoping that AOC, Rashida, and Ilhan join Aaron Bushnell in his brave protest, who if you don't remember is the service member who lit himself on fire to protest what was happening in Gaza.
I've seen all kinds of politicians from Dan Crenshaw talking about punching Antifa people in the face and talking about violence all the time. It has become normalized in a first world country like America to engage in politics like a third world country. That's how y'all talk about violence and shit in your country. And it's not just...
That's an interesting point, you know. I never even thought about that, but yeah, America is way more violent. Not just ignoring the assassination and all of that stuff. Like just in general, America. Like I mean, of course, America has major gun laws and all of that stuff. you know, you're allowed to own a firearm. You don't even need a license for a firearm because they have to grant it as a right. I don't try and draw these guitar strings straight, by the way. I've given up on doing that. If anything, I feel like it adds to the strumming effect. Yeah, America in general has become a much more violent place. I think it's become a lot more difficult. Um, I mean, in general, America's a very divisive place because the 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 difference between a Democrat winning and a Republican winning has become a major issue. Like here in the UK, sure, if the Conservatives somehow won again, it would have been bad, and people wouldn't have been happy. But I don't think it would have been Armageddon. You know, I don't think it would have been. Uh, I don't think it would have been meant the destruction of the UK. But in the case of America, it really does seem like now, if Trump wins, uh, I'm not saying that they won't have another election again. I don't think that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if Trump finds a way to give himself another term. He'll probably try and normalize the fact that he won the election back in 2020, and he was robbed of that opportunity, and because of that, he deserves another election just to another chance to get a third term just because of that. And he'll probably make it exclusively for him because he will say his election was stolen. So it's his right. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. It wouldn't surprise me too much. Or at least it wouldn't surprise me if he attempted to get that to happen. Section. That's fine. Let me put that here. Here. It's good. America has become a country that violence has become more and more normalized. And you know what? Maybe Eva actually has a point as well, where Destiny is someone who normally shouldn't be normalizing this violence, but maybe he feels like he has to now because America has just become such a violent place that they have no choice. Honestly, when I was playing the guitar in here, I was sweating like balls. It was the hottest thing ever. It felt like 40 degrees in there. Okay. Let's just cover up that
I've seen Republicans
spot
do it.
that
And
is
so,
going to be
do I
shaved off
really care
probably
that
at some
someone
point.
else
Right.
made a fuck around? I don't care. This is your playground. This is the sandbox that y'all created. You want to condemn all this behavior? You guys go ahead. But as an outsider, I'm just seeing more of the same.
And the thing that happened is that you go on platforms and you call people from the left snowflakes because they're acting a certain way.
Yep.
Now look at you, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You guys are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like a snowflake is not someone on the left. A snowflake is just someone that just can't handle being talked about.
Yep.
That's a snowflake. And you can be people on the right, y'all can be snowflakes too.
Yep.
Because the way you're like, I can't believe that's what they doing over there.
Absolutely.
And then you do that over there too. It's just you're the same people. You have the same MO, the same.
Where does Everyone Preach come from? Are they Canadian? They've got to be Canadian, right? There's no way that ABBA came all the way down and not see ABBA and I literally saw the words born in. Born? Born 34 and 35 respectively. Right. Canada. Yeah, they're Canadian. I did think so. Quebec. Isn't that the French side? I don't know.
modus operandi, and you have the same way of working as them. You just have different.
I don't even know if there is. I wonder if there's a
Not the
French
same
side
way.
and
How
a.
many times during the BLM protests were people
I
talking
know there's
about
meant
mowing
to
them
be,
down
but
or running
they're
them
probably
over,
not that
doing
different.
all kinds of violence? That was normal.
That was normal.
That's you guys talking about your fellow citizens and talking about how you guys want violence against them, and that
Probably
was
as different as
normal in
Wales
right
is from
circles.
England.
So don't sit here now and then act like somebody who doesn't care about the fact that a right winger died is some big surprise to you. You know, that to me is a little bit pathetic. That's Elon Musk pathetic. All talking about, oh, I want to run a free speech platform. You're platforming everything under the sun, from neo to doesn't matter who it is. Okay, you can even have the Ayatollah. He's up there. Okay, they can spew whatever they want, anti-gay, anti-black, whatever. Destiny makes that joke, and then you want a pearl clutch, bro? Get him out of here. Get him out of here. This is the biggest amount of pearl clutching I ever seen from most of these people, and the hypocrisy is crazy. Now, if you want to say you're not okay with what Destiny said, I ain't got a problem with that.
You're fine to say.
You can say it's bad behavior because at the end of the day, it's bad from everybody. Destiny's just engaging more with the bad. But do I actually care that all the people, all the pigs playing in the mud look like pigs? No. And I know this video is going to be unpopular with a lot of you. I also don't care. Don't ever think that I'm afraid to say what I'm going to say because it makes some of y'all upset or makes it. I don't give a shit. Is he my friend? Sure. Am I biased because of it? Probably. But honestly, when I sit back and think about it, and even when I talk about it with my people, none of them really disagreed that heavily. So that's how I feel about it. And all of this talk about, oh, you guys are afraid to talk about I don't give a shit. I'm not American. That's your problem. That's your country, right? I generally don't talk about presidential elections in other countries. It's not my place. You wanted it, you got it. Now you're unhappy with it, door's right there.
You can't talk about freedom of speech, but then when it's not aligned with what you're thinking, you can, oh, you can't say stuff like that. That's not what freedom of speech means,
bro.
Freedom of speech actually means that the person that disagrees with you have the right to say it.
Yeah,
they have the right to say it, and depending on what they say, they're.
Well, I think when people are saying, "Oh, you can't say that," you can't say that, what they're saying is that you can't. The reason they're probably saying you can't say that is because they're trying to make the point that, how do I put this, that it's wrong, like the things that you're saying are wrong. That's basically what they're saying. They're not saying you can't say that like legally. They're trying to say that you can't say that because it's the wrong thing to say. You shouldn't be saying that. That is a disagreeable statement, right?
Consequences, but they have the right to say it. Go ahead, say it. Say it out loud with your chest. It might not be in line with what I think. Bro, that's what freedom of speech is. So the minute you have this guy that does not agree with you and says something that you said in the past, it's still freedom of speech. You want it, well, they want it too,
bro,
and that's how it works.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are it's pretty. You can disagree with what someone and the politics of someone. It's always going to be wild when you're gonna be like, oh yeah, if they die, people are gonna have a problem with that. That's for sure. You can disagree with the politics of some person and be like, yeah, disagree with the politics, but in wishing death upon the person, if death happens, I'm like, man, people are definitely gonna.
Wait, so who was wishing death? I don't think Destiny was wishing death on someone. I think what he was. Wait a minute. Is that true? Is it true that he wasn't wishing death on someone? I don't think he was wishing death on someone. I think what he's saying is that if you go into a violent Trump rally, then don't be surprised if someone dies. Don't be surprised if you go to a rally that is focused on violent rhetoric and all of that other stuff. Don't be surprised if you end up getting shot. Don't be surprised if someone ends up dying because of it. Now, trying to think. Within these other tweets, did he say something like that? Let's see. So we're at 8 minutes right now.
100%.
A person in a crowd.
Person in the crowd cheering to support a traitor of this country. He's caught a stray.
Cheering
so
for and
sad.
supporting a traitor to this country caught a stray. I'm so sad, please. As well as Donald Trump incited an insurrection.
Donald Trump incited an insurrection and then was granted full criminal immunity for all possible involvement. Yeah. I have zero sympathy for anything that happens to him or anyone who supports him. I will argue this position against any and all conservatives of reasonable size, but there's none of you violence hacks
And
can
then was
step
granted full criminal
up your own
immunity for
echo
possibly
chamber.
all of his involvement. I have zero sympathy for anything that happens to him or anyone who supports him. If I've offended anyone with
DM me and I'll buy. So you could argue that this is violent rhetoric here of saying like, okay, I'll DM me and I'll buy you front row seats, but it's like kinda, but like not really. Like, yeah, it's violent rhetoric, but sorry, it is kind of violent rhetoric, but it's kind of a joke. I don't think because he isn't honestly going to buy front row seats, but he is trying to make the point that hey, it's so violent that you can kind of understand this joke. Okay, let's see what Breach said again.
Right to say it. And depending on what they say, there's consequences, but they have the right to say it. Go ahead, say it. Say it out loud with your chest. It might not be in line with what I think. Bro, that's what freedom of speech is. So the minute you have this guy that does not agree with you and says something that you said in the past, it's still freedom of speech. You want it, well, they want it too,
bro,
and that's how it works.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are it's pretty. You can disagree with what someone and the politics of someone. It's always going to be wild when you're gonna be like, oh yeah, if they die, man, people are gonna have a problem with that. That's for sure, for sure. You can disagree with the politics of some person and be like, yeah, disagree with the politics, but in wishing death upon the person, if death happens, I'm like, man.
Yeah, I don't think Destiny was wishing death on the person. I think Destiny was saying like, look, I have no sympathy for you. I don't think he's hoping that someone dies. I think he's hoping that people stop supporting a violent person. I don't think he's wishing for someone to die. I think that's the wrong approach. Might be wrong. And maybe Destiny does wish for them to die. But I doubt it. I really doubt it. I think if you were to ask him, do you think that do you hope that someone would die, then that's a bad thing. There was one comment that Destiny did say that was a bit interesting, which was the part when they said, did you hope that the assassination was successful against Trump? And then he said the worst outcome was the fact that the assassination attempt happened and that he survived. I think that's a difficult one to defend. You know, I don't want. I might have paraphrased that wrong, and there might be a better way that I should word that. But I think that was essentially what he got the gist of, right? That was the gist of it. He didn't hope that he would die. The best scenario is that the assassination attempt didn't happen at all. The next worst would have been the assassination attempt happened and it succeeded, and then the worst one was that the assassination attempt happened and it failed. So I think that's what he was implying. The fact that the assassination attempt happened at all and that it succeeded bolsters Trump, which is a bad thing.
People are definitely gonna take they're gonna have a problem with it. I think what he was saying was a bit wild, but did he have the right to say it? I believe that he did have the right to say it. What I think was messed up.
I don't think anyone's arguing about the rights of whether or not you have the right to say it. That's a freedom of speech thing, completely different.
The weird thing was him getting banned off all the social media and stuff like that.
To be clear, he was banned off of Kick and demonetized, which is like a degenerate platform for pedos and all kinds of KK.
Yeah,
they allow everything on that platform.
I don't know how Destiny was kicked off of Kick. I don't know how or why that happened. I think we're reaching a point now where the kind of people that got kicked off, put on Kick, not necessarily everyone, but it's either the people that got banned from Twitch, right? For the most part, those are the people that got banned from. That's the people that are on Kick, and most of the people that got banned from Twitch were right-wing people. So those right-wing people, for the most part, right-wing people are going to end up on that Kick platform. And there was all sorts of platforms like this. So there was Kick, there was Rumble. I think Rumble's still a thing. There is, I think there was BitTube for a bit. That was an interesting one that was trying to rival YouTube. Um, there was a couple of others, but essentially a lot of the things that happened with these platforms is that they ended up becoming incredibly radical right-wing platforms, basically Nazi platforms. Um, if you look at platforms that always protect free speech, like 4chan, for example, that's basically what ends up happening is that you end up with extremist right-wing stuff and bad pornography. Um, sorry, just trying to make sure that works. So that's what happened with these platforms. Uh, and Kick is one of those platforms. Not quite to the same extent. Kick is a bit more focused on the gaming aspect and just the people that got kicked from Twitch, regardless of political view. And this might be people like Amaranth as well. I think went on Kick, and there's types like Sneeko that went on who I wouldn't necessarily call political. It's more guy advice people. The Andrew Tate type people. Although nowadays I think he's gone on a more Muslim arc. I don't know what the hell Sneako's doing, frankly. But yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to finish this off. So the fact they got kicked off of Kick was insane. The fact that Destiny ever got kicked from Kick is crazy to me. But yeah, it happened, and I think that Kick is going to just continue to become the right wing version of Twitch. I think that's basically the direction it's going to go. I don't think he's kicked off Kick forever, and in fact, if anything, I think he's back now. But yeah, it's not, doesn't make sense to me.
Platform that you could imagine in terms of degeneracy. I thought that it was weird that this was where they drew the line, but they did reinstatement, and I think he was demonetized on Twitter by Elon Musk. Free speech champion.
Yeah, the guy that says, "Oh, I'm gonna buy this platform and I'm gonna allow all the free speech," but then you got that one person that does not agree with what you're saying, and you're doing this exact same thing. You became the enemy, right? Side note, there's this comedy night here in Montreal in French that basically it's GHB, gore, hardcore, and I don't remember what the B stands for, but basically you go in there and you do comedy and you push your jokes to the limit, and it's made for that, right? You go there and you say wild stuff in a comedy setting, right? Jokes that you're never gonna do again and everything and stuff. And I was on the stage at that thing and I didn't remember. And I was talking the whole night. There was some other people that went on stage, made jokes about PDF files jokes and all those great jokes and stuff like that. I go on stage, I do a couple of jokes, then I do some jokes on gay people, right? And one of them in the crowd, there was a break. There was like an intermission in the show, and I saw one of the guy outside that was at the show, and he was like, "Oh no, yeah, that comedian, me, I can't like really what he said was no, really, I was not having it because me. Oh, the PDF jokes was alright. The grape jokes was cool, but when
What is it about
when
you?
it was you said nah. You was like nah, I'm not having it. You're a big hypocrite. You're a big hypocrite. I understand that comedy is just like a drunk uncle at Christmas. It's funny until he touches you, but at the end of the day, you're a big hypocrite. You're a big, huge hypocrite, and that's what it is.
I'm missing the point at the moment. I got a bit distracted. We'll come back. We'll come back to it, I'm sure.
Platform, which obviously you show. I'm not on the platform. I don't know.
I show you,
but
clips.
Everything you show me,
and this is what they
and this is where you draw the line.
Okay,
you draw the line at F around and find out, but you got people kissing teenagers.
That's a good, yeah.
Teenagers, and you're cool.
That's a good point. Yeah, like I don't know. I think the decision to kick Destiny out of Kick, it didn't make sense. I think the line was the line seemed to be when it was violent rhetoric against Destiny, and it's funny because he's still allowed on YouTube. And I want him to stay on YouTube. I don't want him to be kicked off YouTube. But it's like even YouTube is like, you know, whatever. Yeah, it's just interesting.
With that, you want to laugh? All the political commentators who always talk about how the left is about deplatforming all this stuff. How many of them did I see go online and complain to Elon, talk about this is hate speech, this is inciting, blah blah blah? You realize that they're quick to deplatform just as much as the lefties. They'll talk about it and they'll laugh at liberals and be like, "Oh, deplatform is so bad." But the moment that them like this happened, they also yell for it. So
same people.
I might have spoken about liberals a lot because that's who I spend most of my time with. But over time and spending enough time around these folks, you just realize that they engage in the exact same stuff. They dox, they deplatform, they encourage all this kind of stuff, from the biggest political commentators to the smallest ones. So
I didn't that they left and right, y'all the same people.
It really feels like
it's just because you think whenever you pause an action, you do an action, you just think it's righteous because it aligns with what you think.
Yup.
Whether it's left or right, y'all the same.
Yeah,
y'all the same people. Well, but I did it because I did it to protect. Well, they did the same thing. They're doing the same thing as well, to protect or to whatever, or to go align or to erase what is wrong, what they believe is wrong. Y'all the same.
And everything we said is factual. You guys can go look this up. You can go look up the facts that a bunch of Republicans have been calling for violence for a long time. You can go look up the fact that a bunch of people on the right, big commentators, have been calling for deplatforming for a long time. So knowing that, I don't know how you guys are going to even argue, but guess what? At the end of the day, much like Ben Shapiro loves to say, what? Facts don't care about your feelings. And I have a feeling that most of the people who reacted to this situation had a very emotional response. That's what it is. I'm detached from all of this.
You guys are quick to say facts don't care about your feelings, when
but
the facts,
in their feelings,
when the facts aligns with your feelings, and then you say facts don't care about your feelings, because you don't care about that fact. But when you gonna care about that fact, you gonna that's you.
I think the only unfortunate thing about this whole video is that it might have been out of focus. Not really watch this anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, you can listen to it.
Only 500,000 people.
I'm not re-recording this shit.
Is the audio fire?
Audio works.
Blame the whole shit.
That's it. Anyways, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Yo, I predict this video gonna have a
Brilliant. Right. The next video. I want to watch this.
Trump called people there on.
So this is Destiny's video on January 6th against someone. It seems like he wants to go for smaller people nowadays, Destiny. So yeah, let's see if this conversation's any good.
January 6th to protest the certification of the vote. He led everybody to believe that that certification could be stopped, either with Pence or with enough force applied, I guess. And as the insurrection was ongoing, Donald Trump was making calls to lawmakers to try to continue to encourage them to delay the certification of the vote. There was a plan in mind the entire time. It was even more extensive than that. But yeah, he was hoping that there'd be a lot of pressure. That's why he called people there on January 6th. It's why he, even when he knew they had guns and stuff, he sent them to the Capitol to go and protest. It's why he said over and over again, stop the steal, fight like hell to take our country back. And it's why when violence started and he watched violence happening on TV and he heard that Ashley Babbitt had been shot, instead of like trying to call people off from being violent, he tried to take advantage of the violence in order to further his scheme of having the vote not certified.
Destiny, good to see you, bro. I'm glad that you're still here with us, man.
Yeah, I'm still barely alive, but I'm still here, yeah.
Oh, man, dude. Going crazy on Twitter, man. It's crazy.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, man.
Are you sick? Are you okay?
Yeah, I've had to. I went to the RNC and I just came down with a bug ever since. I sound like all fucking congested and shit.
It's a lot better now, though.
Yeah, it's way better than before. It was worse than this. I went ahead and commingled with all the people you hate. They made me sick. Destiny.
Nice. Well, that's what happens because they were all unvaxxed, you know?
Oh, my. Oh, man.
Well, if he was at the RNC, then they probably were all vaxxed, actually.
Yeah, depending on how far you go. Yeah, true.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit.
All right, so
Awesome.
yeah, you etc. That's gonna be 5 minutes uninterrupted. Then we're gonna have 3 minutes where each of them are gonna be able to lodge their arguments for 3 rounds of that for 3 minutes, going back and forth, and then we're gonna have 2 rounds where it's an open 5-minute dialogue. I'll be timing each round, staying as a neutral moderator. So guys, if you're not familiar with Destiny or Andrew Wilson, please go subscribe to both their channels. I'm cool with both these guys. Obviously, we don't agree on everything, but I respect both these guys as skilled debaters, and they're good colleagues of mine. So please go check out their channels on YouTube and on Rumble and all the platforms that they're on. Domini Liberal on Twitter, the Paleo Christ. Is it the Paleo Christ on
just Paleo Christ on, yeah.
Yeah, on X. So go check them out on all the platforms, guys. I'm happy to be able to host this debate. So other than that, we're live on all platforms, YouTube, Rumble, etc. Check us out rumble.com/freshfit. And Andrew, I will turn it to you to go ahead and start with opening statements, and I'll start the timer.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you to the entire Fresh and Fit audience for coming out, and to DGG as well. We're here today to debate if the events of the January 6th Capitol riots were an insurrection or if they weren't. Simple. It's a simple debate prompt. They either were or they weren't. Looking into the idea of insurrection itself, it isn't exactly clear what the meaning of it is. It does always seem to be tied together with violence or some will to overthrow a government, law, government system, government itself, or resistance to that law, or something akin to this. The Supreme Court hasn't given us any guidance on this as they wash their hands of it, and to date, not a single person has been charged or convicted of insurrection who participated in any of the J6 rioting. This includes Donald Trump himself, who was acquitted of inciting insurrection. You would think, with no clear guidance of what an insurrection is, a lack of anybody being prosecuted for this supposed insurrection who participated, and a president acquitted of inciting one, that would be that. The events of January 6th were a protest that turned into a riot. This is nothing new. Democrats do it all the time. In fact, Destiny in 2021 completely agreed with my current assessment. Please, if you don't mind, play clip 1.
Okay.
Okay, so just so far, it seems like he's saying that it's just a protest and that it turned into a riot, and it's not an insurrection. Right? That seems to be what he's saying.
We will make that available to you. Bills is going to roll it up right now. And I will go ahead and give you an extra 5 seconds just on your thing, just because. Okay, go ahead. Play the video, please. Bills?
If you think the majority of the people there were actually trying to do that, and all they managed to do was kill one woman got shot by the cops, you're fucking delusional. I think most of the people probably showed up to protest because they were fucking mad, and then shit got riled up. There were probably, almost for sure, I would say, some genuine bad actors there that had fantasies of invading the fucking Capitol and shit. Now, I think I heard from the FBI that it was 5% or less had some plan to do something. Even that number sounds a little bit high, because 5% of however many thousand people, there's a lot of people. But I don't think every single person who went there, their goal was to destroy the White House or destroy the Capitol building and take it over. But because if they were, we would have saw way more shit.
Okay.
Now, just so you know, I have no.
Sorry. So this is the time. I think that was done back in. Would it have been 2021? Because the election was 2020, so that would have been done in January 2021. I don't think. I have a feeling. I might be wrong.
Visual on my end when those play, and I'd appreciate it if you guys could put the visual up on my end as well.
Okay.
In fact,
I'll try and just talk during the video.
Political violence is part of the democratic process, akin to voting, he says. He said this to justify the George Floyd or BLM riots, that such riots were just one side of the Democrat coin and baked in to our Democrat process. The tail's in and just the other half of democracy, he says. Of course, he later denied this. Please play clip 2.
Okay. And we'll get this so that you can see it. Just 1 second. I'm going to stop the clock while we're right now, we're 2 minutes and 40 seconds in. Oh, hold on, Bills. I'm going to start the clock back up once, to be fair here, once the clip is up. Can you see it, Andrew?
I cannot see the clip, no, on my end.
He's going to make it visible to you here in a second.
Great.
And I stopped the clock just so everybody knows. Bear with us, guys. We're using a million different things, OBS, Zoom, all this other stuff. Shout out to Bills in the back, working hard. Can you see it now?
I can see something. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. So we will roll the clip now. I'm going to start the clock back up. Bills, go ahead.
Disingenuous sack of shit. Because, as I've debated you in the past, you started talking before January 6th ever occurred about how the BLM riots were justified. It was just the other side of the coin of voting. Of course, once you realized that grip wouldn't do as well for you when you were debating the Rittenhouse shit, you completely 180'd your position.
Did I ever, hold on, did I ever say writing is the other side of the coin of voting?
Probably did.
That's a really strange statement if I did. If I did, that's a really strange statement, but go ahead, okay.
Try to find the clip.
Activism and riots are one side of the coin and the other side is voting. I think there's conspiratorial at all. I think that affecting political change like this is fine. Like that's part of the goal. Like activism and riots are one side of the coin and the other side is voting.
Woo.
And
So,
this in 20 seconds in. Go ahead.
So why the radical change of heart on this topic from Destiny? This complete 180? Well, that's simple. He hates Donald Trump. A simple motivation, but at least understandable. He also hates Trump supporters. In order for him to justify that he wants them all to be unalived, he needs to brand them all as traitors and insurrectionists. In this way, he can build a case that Trump supporters are evil, and so it is justified to use violence against them. To recap that, Trump supporters are evil, therefore anything which happens to them is fine. Going so far as to say his friend Pisco, the only
I'm gonna do 3 more drawings and then I'm done.
Trump to have been unalived by this would-be assassin is because it would motivate Republicans. This, of course, gives us an entailment that if it wouldn't motivate Trump supporters, he would be fine with Trump having met his demise in this assassination attempt. And this is the last clip. Play clip 3, please, and then I'll wrap this up.
Okay, we're 4 minutes and 20 seconds in. I'm going to stop the watch while we pull this up. Approximately 4:24 seconds, but I'm adding another 5 from the first clip and how we were pulling it up. So
far beyond that. So far.
Okay. I'll start the clock back up once we roll the clip. Can you see it, guys? Can you see it, Andrew? Oh, sorry. He's screen sharing it right now. Give us 1 second. We'll pull it up. Thank you, audience, and thank you guys for bearing with us here. Many things going on. We want to make sure that Andrew can see it as well as the audience.
Yep, I can see it.
You can see it? Okay. Bills, go ahead. I'll start the timer back up.
So far beyond that. So
Not
far
difficult to just screen share, isn't it?
Losers. But go ahead. Yeah, fine.
Can I ask you a question? And you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the
Do
thing.
you wish the attempt had been successful?
Do I wish that the attempt had been successful? Am I even allowed to say anything about that?
You don't have to answer that.
Here's what I'll say. This is what I will say. I don't know, because I'm trying to Fed post whatever. Here's what I will say. A failed attempt is probably the worst outcome of anything that could have happened. I'll say that much.
I disagree. I think a successful attempt, if that had happened.
Well, actually, hold on. We might agree. The successful attempt,
Stop real quick, Bills.
it would be an attempt at that point. The successful.
Pause real quick. So, guys, we just hit pretty much the 5-minute mark. Destiny, if you're okay with it, I can let this kind of go on another minute or so, and I'll afford you an extra minute and give you 6.
Yeah, you can let this thing out. Yeah.
You sure? Okay. All right. So we'll complete this out. I'll time it. Whatever I gave Andrew, I will give to you as well on your opening statements if you're okay with that. Go ahead, Bills. Roll the clip back. Thank you, Destiny.
Whatever. Might be the worst thing that happened. But if it was the worst thing, it would just because of like the country's reaction afterwards, basically. Which is possible, yeah.
Well, I mean.
So, ultimately, Destiny needs to be able to provide us with what an insurrection actually is, an actual working legal definition, or even a personal one, so we can work off of that to understand the mindset of a person who claims this was an insurrection, even as nobody ultimately is prosecuted for an insurrection. He, to date, hasn't done this for the same reason the Supreme Court and higher courts won't. If they do define it strictly and categorize it strictly, then it's likely Democrats and even Republicans are engaging in them all the time. Non-stop, in fact. I am, in fact, willing to, in the ultimate spirit of good faith, concede that if Destiny just can't really define an insurrection or tell us what goes into that category, and not into the category of a riot, that he really has no business calling anybody an insurrectionist, especially when nobody's been charged with an insurrection in regards to J6. Nobody, and certainly not convicted. I will concede, however, if he concedes Democrats are likely involved in insurrections.
So before Destiny starts talking, I just want to kind of think about. So he's saying, we need to. Did he say that he needs to define it, or that we need to define it?
In fact, willing. They do define it strictly and categorize it strictly, then it's likely Democrats and even Republicans are engaging in them all the time. Non-stop, in fact. I am, in fact, willing to, in the ultimate spirit of good faith, concede that if Destiny just can't really define an insurrection or tell us what goes into that category, and not into the category of a riot, that he really has no business calling anybody an insurrectionist, especially when nobody's been charged with an insurrection in regards to J6. Nobody, and certainly not convicted.
Right, yeah, so he's saying that Destiny needs to be the one to define an insurrection. So how do we... I think the biggest way that I would define an insurrection, personally, is that it's a type of riot. When we say riot, I mean a violent protest in an attempt to either mess with or overthrow the government process. That's basically what it is. So, for example, if you have a riot, you could riot about, you could riot and complain about, I don't know, let's say, well, let's take Brexit, right? You could riot about Brexit, but the moment that you try and stop the government process of Brexit being put through, that is when you start doing an insurrection, right? Similar with similar, but if you were to do a riot and just protest outside, right? And you was doing violent stuff outside, you're violently destroying buildings and all of that stuff. That isn't messing with the government process of putting through the Brexit vote. That is just doing a riot. But if you are, and you could argue that by doing those protests that you're putting pressure onto the process because so many people are rioting outside, we should stop doing this. But if no one's actually putting that pressure on you outside of the people who are being violent outside, it's not really a riot. But I think what makes January 6th unique was the fact that people were protesting outside, being violent, they were trying to put through fake electoral ballots, and that they were really pressuring the Congress to delay the vote. And by pressuring the government to do its job of deciding who wins the election, you are committing an insurrection. That's how I would define it.
I will concede, however, if he concedes Democrats are likely involved in insurrections all the time, using violence for political change, I'll concede Republicans may be as well if his definition is that broad. However, that will eliminate his moral high ground for the justification of do what you want to them because they're traitors. That would also make you a traitor. With that, I'll cede my time. Note in that video that the entire audience, when he was asked this question by Pisco, said, yes, we would have preferred that Trump was unalive during that assassination attempt. Go ahead.
Okay. So that I have approximately 6 minutes and 45 seconds there. Destiny, I will reset the clock and allot you the same exact amount of time to stay fair here. Let me know when you are ready, and I'll restart the clock.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever.
Ready? Okay, I'm going to start it now. I'll give you 6:45, and go ahead, brother.
All right. I believe that the subject matter of the debate is whether or not January 6th is an insurrection or would be considered an insurrection. Originally, I thought there was going to be a 1v1 debate against me and Andrew, but I can do a 1v2 debate against my 2021 less educated self as well.
Yeah.
I have no problem speaking to arguments I've made in prior clips. I have no problem speaking to current arguments made by Andrew. So we can head down that road. I think that the first thing that we need to acknowledge when we talk about the structure of the United States government is that the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land. The Constitution is what powers our three branches of government, and it sits above every other part of our government, and every part of our government must comport to the Constitution. I think this is a foundational American belief and principle, and if you don't share on this foundational belief, then we're never going to connect in any sort of meaningful way when we talk about how U.S. law or U.S. process or procedure, whatever, should be carried out. So that being said, there was an amendment to the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, and Section 3 of that amendment basically goes on to say that any prior oath taker that has engaged in or aided in an insurrection is no longer allowed to hold office, essentially. Now, the question that we come to today is trying to define what is an insurrection. And while in modern times, it seems like an insurrection is a term left to a dictionary or a term left to internet debaters, at the time that the amendment, the 14th Amendment, was framed, what was an insurrection was pretty well understood. An insurrection includes 4 vital elements. 1 is an assemblage, meaning a group of people that have come together. 2 is resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. 3 is you have to do this by way of force or intimidation. And 4 is it has to be for a public concern or a public cause, not a private thing that one might be interested in. Just for some understandings of when we say an assemblage, we can look to in 1861, Justice Benjamin Curtis said a combination or conspiracy by which different individuals are united in one common purpose. So not just a bunch of people in a city protesting different things, but a group of people that are united in one common purpose. We can look to Justice Samuel Chase in the case of Fries in the year 1800. He says, if a body of people conspire and meditate an insurrection to resist or oppose the execution of any statute of the United States, a statute such as the ECA, the Electoral Count Act, which is what they were united on January 6th to insurrect against. They were opposing the execution of that. They are only guilty of a high misdemeanor, but if they proceed to carry such intention into execution by force, which we did see on the day of January 6th, regardless of if every member engaged in force or just one, they are guilty of the treason of levying war, and the quantum of force employed neither lessens nor increases the crime, whether by 100 or 1,000 persons is wholly immaterial. Doesn't matter if you have an insurrection of 50 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people. You only really need 2 people there to make an insurrection. In terms of whether
also,
or not
it seems like his 4 pillars. What was it? It was like an assemblage of people. That second point, I think, was the most important one. It was something to do with like stopping government proceedings. It was literally pretty much what I said. So it seems like we're on the same boat.
They were resisting a law or interfering with the cause of government. We can quote here, an insurrection against the United States requires resistance to any statute or some public law of the United States. This is a quote by Judge in, I think, 1826. Curtis spoke this to a jury. He says, the law does not distinguish between a purpose to prevent the execution of one or several or all laws. An insurrection could be directed at a legislature as well as at executive officials. William Rawle declared that an effort to coerce repeal of a general law to be an overt act of levying war. And Justice Field's opinion in the Great House Court case held that any effort to coerce the conduct of government constituted an insurrection, such as when people went to the White House, or I'm sorry, went to the Capitol to coerce Pence to overthrow the election, which is what Donald Trump told them to do. By force or by intimidation, quoting Justice Marshall in 1807, the most comprehensive definition of levying war against the king or against the United States, which I have seen, requires an assemblage of men ready to act and with an intent to do some treasonable act and armed in warlike manner, or else assembled in such numbers as to supersede the necessity of arms. You don't necessarily need weapons to do it. You could just have the numbers of people there threatening to use force or intimidation. And then for a public purpose, obviously, the insurrection is to, I'm quoting Judge John Kane here, insurrections to redress by force national grievances or to reform real or imaginary evils of a public nature. Obviously, they were protesting the vote. That's what they were there to do. This is obviously a public issue. So to recount, for the assembly, there were hundreds of people that breached the Capitol building. There were thousands that trespassed on federal land. For 2, there was a clear resistance to the federal law. The trespassers were there to contravene the Electoral Count Act. There was a plethora of evidence brought up in the Anderson versus Griswold case about this, where quoting the judges on that case, they said substantial evidence in the record showed that the mob's unified purpose was to hinder or prevent Congress from counting the electoral votes as required by the 12th Amendment and from certifying the 2020 presidential election. The third element, the resistance made extensive use of force. This is self-evident just by watching any of the videos. To quote the Colorado Supreme Court again, the mob repeatedly and violently assaulted police officers who were trying to defend the Capitol. Obviously, there were calls to hang Mike Pence, and people marched, very famously, with 1776 signs, which, as many in this audience might be familiar with, was a very popular insurrection in U.S. history, or a rebellion even, one might say. And then for a public purpose, it was obviously for the public purpose of resisting what they perceived to be as the stealing of the election. There are ways to try to counter this argument. We can either use nonsense definitions of insurrection, but that doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters was the public understanding and the legal understanding of insurrection at the time the 14th Amendment was created and when Section 3 was framed, because that's what the Constitution demands, that we look at what was thought of as an insurrection when the language was added to the Constitution. We can try to divert by talking about BLM or anything else, and I'm happy to dive into all of those examples if we are going to concede on the original argument that January 6th satisfies all 4 elements of what I consider an insurrection to be. If we want to concede that and move on to analyzing any particular BLM action or whatever, that's totally fine. We can talk about the likeliness to work, of which an insurrection has never been defined as. An insurrection doesn't necessarily have to lead to the overthrow of a government. That would be understood as a rebellion. Every insurrection is not a rebellion, though every rebellion starts as an insurrection. And then when we say, this is a common one as well, why was no one charged with an insurrection? People can be charged or couldn't be charged with crimes for a variety of reasons, but for purposes of the 14th Amendment, nothing in there requires the criminal conviction of the crime of insurrection, only that an insurrection occurred and that one engaged in it or aided it.
All right. And that is 6:40. Okay. So just 5 seconds shy. That completes the opening statements. Really good arguments from both sides here.
Yes,
we'll go into round 1. I'll turn it back. So we just completed opening statements, guys. Each party had 6 minutes and 45 seconds to make their original stance and their first opening statements. We'll go to round 1. I'll set the clock for 3 minutes. Andrew, let me know when you are ready. And
yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, timer is going now. Go ahead. 3 minutes.
So let's start with this idea of my definition. What the hell do I care about your definition? Nobody has been prosecuted for any insurrection by any definition. Destiny comes through and he gives us this list. He says 1, an assemblage. Okay. 2.
Okay, so we're in agreement that an assemblage is a means of. I just realized I put this on the wrong layer. That's all right. So we're in agreement that an assemblage, which just means a bunch of people, I assume, is.
2, resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Okay. 2, resisting any law or interfering with the course of a.
Resisting any law. I feel like we need that defined. Because if is resisting a law, for example, someone takes a bunch of cocaine, are they resisting the law? If they are refusing to be arrested, they're just breaking off, then is that resisting a law?
An assemblage. Okay. 2, resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding.
That other part is way more important. So, maybe you could argue that anything is a insurrection, in which case, but the importance, I think it's actually more important to specify. I think we're actually getting, you know what? I feel like we are seeing a repeat of this thing where there was this point when Destiny was fighting with, I think it was Mr. Girl, about whether or not Nick Fuentes counts as a Nazi. And the fact is, Destiny didn't care whether or not Nick Fuentes was a Nazi. He just cared about what his beliefs were, which was, let's be honest, it was basically a Nazi. But he didn't care about labeling. I feel like this is a weird thing where I'm trying to remember what Destiny said before, but if it's the case that resisting a law is a form of insurrection, that's stupid, that first bit. The second bit I think is more important, which is interfering with a government proceeding. Essentially, that means overthrowing or trying to fuck up a government.
Okay. 3, by force or intimidation. Okay. 4, for a public purpose. He has just outlined.
Right, yeah, so the most important part is that point 2, which is interfering a government proceeding. This is a awful, we should probably ensure that we are agreeing that this is an awful type of insurrection. We shouldn't have an insurrection that interferes with a government proceeding.
Basically, almost every single political riot I've ever heard of. That is what that is outlined. So let's see, an assemblage. This would cover a riot. A bunch of people assembling. Resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. That could be shutting down roadways for commerce. That could mean anything. By force or intimidating, if you have Black Lives...
What we're focusing on is so that is going to be the contention, isn't it? We're going to be focusing on that second point. That is what we need to work on.
Matter, other groups like this who are out there saying no justice, no peace, that would be very intimidating. And then for public purpose, very nebulous. All of this is completely nebulous language. He has not actually given us a definition at all. By the way, if you could cam me while I'm talking, I'd appreciate it. He has not given us a definition at all. He's just kind of given us this loose, nebulous, framework for what is or isn't an insurrection. So let's kind of dive into a couple more things here. He says people can or can't be charged for a variety of reasons. That's not saying anything. So what? Yeah, that's true. Maybe they committed insurrection and they weren't charged for insurrection, but also maybe they did not commit insurrection and that's why they weren't charged with insurrection. That's a non-argument. He says that these elements, third element, self-evident, Colorado Supreme Court using 1776 signs. People use 1776 signs all the time and have absolutely no interest in any type of rebellion whatsoever. It's very common for people to have those as bumper stickers. That doesn't mean that they're going to be engaging in any kind of rebellion or insurrection at all. He also, as he talks about these various rulings, he says treason of levying war comes in. Obviously, insurrection seems to have something to do with levying war against the United States, or at least some type of start to levy war against the United States. He still has not actually demonstrated any of this. He's just given us this really nebulous idea. An assemblage, resisting any law or interfering with a course of government proceeding by force or intimidating for public. This is very nebulous. So unless Destiny is going to concede that anything which meets this criteria is an insurrection, then I'm not even sure how to go forward with this debate. How in the world can he say essentially almost any riot on planet Earth or any assemblage, even a peaceful protest where they shut down the roads, is an insurrection? That can't be true. That just can't be true.
Okay. We had ended there at about 2:57. Andrew,
I will say, yeah, that bit when it says any or resisting any law, I think needs to be questioned. But regardless, I don't know if this matters. I feel like the disagreement should really be on the fact that we're agreeing that this is stopping a government proceeding, right? I think that's what Destiny should hammer on to.
you're up on our channel. They can see you. I don't know if it's on.
Yeah, we're good on mine too.
Oh, you are okay. Perfect. I just want to make sure that we're there. So, but you are definitely up on, and whoever's speaking, I always make them the main person. So, Destiny, I'm gonna put this is round one. I'm gonna put 3 minutes on the clock for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, brother.
So I think my definition is pretty clear. There is an assemblage. There's a clear resistance to the implementation or the execution of some federal law. The resistance has an aim to make use of force or intimidation, and it's gathered for a particular public purpose. BLM almost automatically fails on the fact that these were not usually demonstrations against federal law. I don't know the federal law or the federal thing that was being resisted by BLM. But again, I'm happy to dive into any particular BLM supposed insurrection or riot if you'd like. But again, I mean, that has nothing to do with January 6th. And if you want, then you can see that entire argument, and we can move on to analyzing individual BLM instances. The resistance has...
So, Destiny, I'm going to put, this is round one. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, brother.
So I think my definition is pretty clear. There is an assemblage. There's a clear resistance to the implementation or the execution of some federal law. The resistance has an aim to make use of force or intimidation, and it's gathered for a particular public purpose. BLM almost automatically fails on the fact that these were not usually demonstrations against federal law. I don't know the federal law or the federal thing that was being resisted by BLM. But again, I'm happy to dive into any particular BLM supposed insurrection or riot if you'd like. But again, I mean, that has nothing to do with January 6th.
Let's go back again.
That these were not usually demonstrations against federal law. I don't know the federal law or the federal thing that was being resisted by BLM.
The federal law that was being resisted. I guess actually, yeah, the riot was more making a point of defunding the police. It wasn't about resisting a law. I mean, you could make an argument that they're resisting, that, you know, they're doing violent things, so isn't that resisting a law? Are they? But then I guess the reason that they're doing the violent things they're doing isn't because of the violent, like, they're not doing the violent thing to put through violence as a law. They're doing the violent thing because um, they want to defund the police. But surely you can protest based on laws that you don't like, though. Surely you can do a riot based on abortion law, for example. So when abortion was gone, in America, was that them being violent when they went, hey, we're going to be violent? Like, if you was to be violent after an abortion law was put through, would that be the case? I don't know.
But again, I'm happy to dive into any particular BLM supposed insurrection or riot if you'd like. But again, I mean, that has nothing to do with January 6th. And if you want, then you can see that entire argument and we can move on to analyzing individual BLM instances. But again, you'd have to show that there was some implementation or carrying out of some federal function for it to be an insurrection against the United States government. States might have their own definitions of state insurrections. I'm unaware of any. So to say again, my definition of insurrection, like very clearly, has 4 elements. If you want to suggest an alternate, I'm unaware of any. So to say again, my definition of insurrection, like very clearly, has 4 elements. If you want to suggest an alternate definition that you feel more accurately comports with what you would consider an insurrection to be, that's fine, but we can't just say that it's nebulous and there is no definition when we've got references made in our Constitution and in our federal criminal code to insurrection. That doesn't make any sense. We can complain about people being charged with an insurrection or not, but whether or not somebody is charged with an insurrection, again, has nothing to do with the event itself. For instance, if I were to look and see at any number of BLM riots, if I were to look at a riot, would a challenge to that riot be, well, was anybody charged with rioting? If I could show you a riot where people clearly engaged in a riot, where there was a mass of people that were engaged in violent behavior that involved the destruction of some property or violent activity, but I were to say, well, look, nobody was actually charged with rioting, would you say then that, well, I guess nobody was actually, or there wasn't a riot that actually happened? Nobody would make that claim. There's a whole list of reasons why a prosecutor may or may not charge for particular crimes. In this particular case, there were really good reasons not to head down that insurrection charge road, because it would probably put the Supreme Court in a very hairy area, which they might end up getting into anyway, in terms of actually having a strict definition of what an insurrection is. But again, the 14th Amendment doesn't require a strict definition of insurrection in order to disbar somebody from running from office. All it needs is for a court to engage in asking the question of whether or not somebody had engaged in an insurrection, and if they had and were a prior oath taker, then they were barred from taking any public office in the future. So yeah, again, if there's an alternate definition that wants to be explored for an insurrection, then I welcome that. But that definition, it needs to comport with the historical and legal understanding of what an insurrection was. Otherwise, it's just meaningless, meandering, opining that means nothing, when we should be thinking, like, what was the definition of insurrection at the time the 14th Amendment was drafted?
Okay, that's 2 minutes and 40 seconds. You don't want to use the rest of the 20 seconds, Destiny? Okay.
I mean, like, we can, if this ends up going into like a whole bunch of like BLM stuff, I mean, we can get to that, but that has no bearing on whether J6 would be considered an insurrection or not. So,
okay. So 2 minutes and 57 seconds. That completes round 1. I will restart the clock. We'll move into round 2. I'll turn it back to you, Andrew. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll turn the clock on.
So I'm not claiming that this has anything to do with BLM. I'm doing an internal critique and saying that if you're going to apply these nebulous standards to this, then you must apply them to this. If this category, if category A over here, also would include everything which includes a riot, then we would need to know what the delineating factor is. He claims here there must be some federal element. However, that's not in his definition. His definition does not include any federal element. To go over his definition again, an assemblage resisting law by force or intimidation for public purpose. It doesn't say anything about a federal element. He just pulled that out of his ass. I don't know where the hell he got that from. It's definitely not in his definition. If it was, he should have said that that was in his definition. He said not purpose. It doesn't factor is. He claims here there must be some federal element. However, that's not in his definition. His definition does not include any federal element. To go over his definition again.
His definition include any federal. I don't know. Wait. Sorry, his definition doesn't include any federal. This is a federal. This is from the Constitution. Isn't the Constitution federal? I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure everything that the Constitution talks about doesn't apply to the states, right? There's nothing. I think there's mention of the states, but I don't think they dictate anything of the states, right? They don't even talk about how the states should be structured, right?
An assemblage resisting law by force or intimidation for public purpose. It doesn't say anything about a federal element. He just pulled that out of his ass. I don't know where the hell he got that, but it's definitely not in his definition. If it was, he should have said that that was in his definition. He said he keeps going back to this illogical idea that just because X doesn't happen doesn't mean X isn't true. Yeah, that's true, but it also doesn't mean X is true. So making the claim that, well, wait a second, Andrew, just because they weren't actually charged with insurrection does.
Okay, I'm gonna end the video here because I'm done drawing for now. God damn it, I've only drawn up to the 41st second. So much drawing to. I don't even know. I think I did. Maybe did 2 or 3 seconds of drawing today. From now on, I'm going to be making these videos up to the finished drawing, because I think that will be good for my channel. I think that'll be good for me. I think that'll be good for everybody. And next time when I make a video like this, I'm gonna try and make a lower effort video. Anyway, I'm gonna end the stream here. Thanks very much. See you soon.